we're going to practice for it. Okay, so I wrote out a practice quiz. We're going to go through that first. We will be talking about other things today. The quiz will cover what is on this paper. Got it? Do not say, this is for what's on the quiz. This is what's on the quiz. Let's go through this, practice it. And do we have class tomorrow?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, the quiz is tomorrow. So lucky for you, we have office hours in the morning. If I do something here,
will be celebrating now. And please feel welcome to join us. Thank you.
so if I'm doing something that you're not sure about, you'll get your little fanny in here. Here. You'll get in here tomorrow morning. And we can review it. So, quiz tomorrow is going to have some kind of a simplify the exponents problem. Okay? So here we go. What do you think? There's lots going on in this problem. You can do whatever you want to do, but you got to do something. So, what do you think might be a way to start? Katie?
I'll probably flip it first because it's negative.
Flip the whole thing? Now, she's exactly right. That negative is going to flip this whole fraction. Don't be confused. When you flip the whole fraction, that means whatever is down here is going to the top. Exactly as it is. Do you see what I'm saying? You are flipping the fraction. So this comes down. Here, you need one of these. So if you choose to start this way, it's perfectly okay. Perfectly okay. But when you flip, don't be messing around with any other negatives. This comes up, this comes down. And now this becomes a positive 2. All right? So assuming we started that way, what would be next? What would you like to do next?
You would square everything.
So take everything to the second power, including the 4 and the 3. So I would have 16 x to the negative 6 y squared over 9, 3 squared, x to the 10th y to the negative 14. Now again, you might not do it in this particular order, and that's okay. But, is that right?
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. All right, now what do you want to do with that? So, combine like terms. Now, when you start combining like terms, be careful. See this guy right here? He's coming down, right? So you got 10 x's sitting in the basement right now, and you're going to bring down 6 more. So now you're going to have x to the 16th on the bottom. Oh yeah, you are. Yep. And then see these guys? What's that?
If you combine negative and positive, why wouldn't it be 4x?
Well, this is a division,
Okay.
so you'd be subtracting. So it'd be negative 16, but it goes to the bottom because it's negative, so it's 16. And then these guys are going to the top, right? You already have 2 up here. You're going to bring up 14 more. So that's going to give you a 16 on the top. Nate?
Hold on. Never mind. That was my mistake. I thought I wrote a negative 2 on top.
Is it negative 2? Nope. Nope, I think it's positive 2.
Yeah. I don't know why I wrote negative.
Now, I would suggest you go home or go to resource or English class or somewhere, I don't care, and redo this problem your own way, your own order, and make sure you're getting that answer at the end. You do not have to go through the steps in the order that we did it, but you do have to end up with that answer. All right, writing interval notation. That means parentheses and brackets. Keep in mind what this looks like is this, right? That's what it looks like on the number line. So this arrow is pointing to negative infinity. So my interval will be negative infinity 2. Infinities always have the parentheses, and that dot's colored in because of the or equal to, so that's a bracket. They gotta be in that order. Got it? Find PQ. Now, this is exactly what the quiz will say. Now, it might be AB or RS, it might be different letters, but it isn't going to give you any other direction. You need to know what this means. What does it mean when we say find PQ? What's that mean? Distance. That's a distance. So we have to remember how to find the distance between these 2 points. Okay? So who remembers how to do that? I kind of gave it away already. I put a radical up here, distance formula. All right, what do we do?
X2 minus X1 squared plus Y2 minus Y1 squared.
Now, he's given me the formula, which you do not need to write down, but if you want to write it down and it helps you to write it down, write it down. Basically, we're going to subtract our x's and square them. We're going to subtract our y's and square them. Right? Add them up and take the square root. So here we go. That's going to be 1 plus 49. 250? Is that right?
Yep.
Now, root 50 is special, not because it's a perfect square, but because it can be reduced, broken down, simplified. So this is 25 times 2. So we probably should write our answer as 5 root 2. You're not going to be able to do that with every radical, right? But sometimes you can, and if you can, you should do it. Next, we got to solve an equation. We did some of these last time. What did we do? I think you guys had a great strategy for these problems. What did you do?
Found the common denominator.
Because if you can make all the denominators the same, you can lose them, and then you don't have a fraction to mess with anymore. So what would be the denominator, a common denominator, doesn't have to be any particular number, but what would be a common denominator for those? Van?
Oh wait, never mind. I'm wrong.
Go ahead, say something.
It's wrong.
Say it anyway.
I was gonna say 40, but that's wrong.
Okay, 40 would work for 5 and 10, but it won't work for 7, will it? 70? Will 70 work for all those numbers? Now, guys, if you get confused, your common denominator can always be the product of all of these. So if you really can't think of anything else, you could do 5 times 7 times 10 and use 350 as your common denominator. Now the least common denominator is 70 because the 5 goes into the 10, so you can really just use those two. But you can always just multiply these to get a common denominator. But we're doing say 70? So this one needs times by 14. This one by 10. And this one by 7. So here we go. They're all 70 now on the bottom. So 14 times 4, 56. Plus 30x minus 20 equals 7x. Everybody with me so far here? So let's see, 30x plus 36 equals 7x. Oh my goodness. I got negative 36/23. Don't take my word for it, I'm old. Make mistakes. Anybody agree? All right, number 5, find the midpoint of PQ in number 3. So we have these 2 points, and we're finding the midpoint. Now we're finding the midpoint. So how do we do that? It's going to be a point, average. So we're going to add them up, 1 plus 2, and divide by 2. So I have 3 halves for my first one. And then negative 4 plus 3, negative 1 half. How's that look to everybody? You can use decimals if you prefer. It's just as easy to read them as fractions. And now we're going to write the equation of a circle. We know the center, and we know the radius. And the hardest part about this is you have to remember what the equation of a circle looks like. Do you remember that circles look something like this? Remember, that's the style of a circle. That's what they look like. So if we know the center, can we build this part of our equation?
Yeah.
What will it be? X minus 1 squared. Y minus 4 squared. Now, what goes over here? What does this tell me? This number in the equation, what does it tell me? This is the radius squared. In the equation, that number is the radius squared. So, if the radius is 5 root 2, then won't this be 5 root 2 squared? Which is 25 times 2. So this is 50.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get the X and the Y? Like, where did you get that from?
This right here, it was given in the problem.
Wait, did we start?
This is a different problem. This is the midpoint problem. This is number 5. And then this is my circle. Right
Okay.
All right, so what's on our quiz tomorrow? This right here. Now, quiz may not have all 6 questions. I have different versions of the quiz, so we're not cheating off each other. So some of you might have, these 4 questions, and somebody else has these 4 or whatever. But these are the problems that I'll be choosing from for the quiz. Okay? There's nothing to worry about, nothing to stress about. You just need to know this stuff. So you can go and practice these again or do whatever you want to do. I don't know. All right, so that takes care of that. Now, let's get back to our notes. We get a few notes taken. And then we are going to lunch and we'll take some more notes. we're ready for number 5?
Yeah.
On page 4. We have this inequality, and we want to know if 2 is a solution. Well, we kind of talked about this the other day. What are some options that we have?
You can plug it in for a variable.
So it's 2. So if I plug 2 in, I would have 14 minus 6 is less than 8. Is that a true statement? No. What else you could do is actually solve this. So add the 6 over and divide. And this is the actual solution, right? So 2 is not part of that set. 1 would be, -5 would be, but 2 is not. So either plug it in like he said, or go ahead and solve it and see if your answer matches. Okay, 6. Solve for the indicated variable. We actually have to do this a lot in calculus class, guys. This is a big deal. Taking an equation that's full of letters. This particular equation has P by itself. It's solved for P. You want to rearrange the equation so that you have W by itself. So same equation, we're just going to rearrange things and get W by itself. So what do you think? What might we do first? Kara?
Don't we like isolate the equation so you would divide both sides by 2?
Well, you can. So one option would be to divide both sides by 2. Would you agree that this is what we have if we do that?
And then would you just subtract the L?
Uh-huh. So if we just subtract the L, W will equal this.
Yes.
Now, not everybody's going to do it that way, but Kara, that's a beautiful way of doing it. Somebody might say, can I just distribute? Yep. And then I'll subtract the 2L and divide by 2. Does that accomplish the same thing? Yep. Looks a little different, but it's exactly the same equation, just looks a little different. Very good. Would you try B on your own or with your partner there? See if you can get B. And go ahead and do C. Let's see if you can get those letters by themselves. By the way, anybody recognize this formula? This is a formula. Do you recognize it?
It's the formula for a triangle.
Is that trapezoid?
It is. This is the area of a trapezoid. Yes, indeed. And what about C? It's a formula too.
The volume of a circle.
Of a sphere. Volume of a sphere. A ball.
It's just a circle with extra steps.
A three-dimensional circle. Okay, so we're solving for this one. We're solving for this one. Jaden, did you have any idea about how to start this guy? How did you start it? There's more than one way. How did you start it?
I just like distributed.
You distributed? Right then, what did you do, Jaden?
Subtracted like the second B.
Yep, you're gonna subtract the second piece, if this is the way you did it. That's exactly what you're gonna do. And then what?
Would you like divide the,
Okay, now, we need to get rid of this, right?
yeah.
So, I want you to be careful, because I don't want you to have a complex fraction. Let's do the 1/2 first. Dividing by 1/2 is the same as timesing by 2. So I'm gonna go ahead and times by 2 first, because I do not wanna have a fraction within a fraction. So I'm gonna times this by 2. Then I can divide by my h. So one way of writing the answer is like this. I would not have done the problem like that myself, but that doesn't matter. There's lots of ways to do it. Did anybody have a different thought on this? Let's see if we come up with the same answer. We have a different thought, Ally?
Do you want me to go through the whole process?
Yeah.
Or, okay, so first I just went ahead and did times 2 for both sides.
So 2a equals h, b1 plus b2. Okay, you times both sides by 2.
Yes. Then I divided by h.
So 2a over h equals b1 plus b2.
And then just subtract b.
So 2a over h minus b2 equals b1. And believe it or not, that is the same as this. This has a common denominator, that does not. Perfect, beautiful. How about this one? Who had a thought on this one? Meg?
So for, if you divide v by 3/4, so it'd be 3v over 4.
So what you mean is I have to divide by
Yeah.
4/3,
Yeah.
which is timesing
Yeah.
by 3/4. So she says you have 3v over 4.
And then you can add.
Wait, yep, just a second. Does everybody get that? That you're dividing by the fraction, which is multiplying by the reciprocal. So that's why it's 3/4 over here. Okay, then what did you say?
And then you gotta add pi to the denominator on the other side by dividing.
We're dividing by pi now. We have to divide by pi, which is multiplying by 1 over pi. I do not want to see this, kids. I don't want to see that. We're gonna make one fraction, not all these little fractions and big fractions. When you divide by pi, that's the same as multiplying by 1 over pi. So 3v over 4 pi equals r cubed.
And then you gotta, like, uncube it by
By cube rooting it.
cube rooting it.
So r equals the cube root of 3v over 4 pi. Perfect. Perfect. One more, this is the Celsius Fahrenheit formula. Go ahead and do it. See if you can get the F by itself. This is what I came up with. Remember, dividing by 5/9 is multiplying by 9/5. Now I did it this way too. I did it by distributing first. There was more arithmetic involved, but the answer came out the same. Lauren?
I got that, but with the 32 not being in the numerator or
In the numerator, what do you mean?
would it not be 9c plus 32 over 5?
No. No, it would not be. So what did you do first?
I multiplied by the reciprocal, so
Okay.
9/5.
So we started with this. Right? So when we multiply by 9/5, we have this. And then we add the 32. Anybody else? All right, P3 due on Monday. We don't have class that day, so either bring it to me tomorrow or run it by sometime on Monday. I don't think we have class on Monday. Okay, and here we go with P4. Find the slope. Someone groaned. No way, slope is easy. How do we find slope? Who remembers? Gotta get through a couple of these and then we'll go to lunch, but we gotta get through the slope problem. How do we find slope? Who remembers? Nyla?
Is it changing y after changing x?
So one of the, M is the letter for slope. Does everybody remember that? M is slope. And she said, change in y over change in x. And that's exactly right. And to find how much something changes, don't we subtract? So if you want or need a formula, we normally write this as the slope formula. It's how the y's change over how the x's change. So for this particular set of problems, wouldn't we have -1 minus 2 over 7 minus 3? Or -3/4? Easy, easy. Charlie?
So could you switch it around and do?
You could, and if you did, Charlie, it would be 2 minus -1 over 3 minus 7, and that would be 3 over -4, which is exactly the same as -3/4. Got it, folks? All right, let's do the next one on your own. It says find the slope. Yeah. What'd you come up with? You got 0 over -13. Well, I don't know if that bottom number's right. It might be I didn't work it out. I saw that my numerator was going to be 0. And when that happens, it really doesn't matter what's in the bottom because 0 divided by something is 0. So this slope is 0, which means it's what kind of a line? Horizontal. This is a horizontal line. Now, the other thing that can happen, it didn't happen, but the other thing that can happen is you can get a slope of something like -13 over 0. That is undefined. Or sometimes we just flat out say no slope. Don't say 0, that's a whole different ballgame. What kind of a line has no slope? Vertical. This is a vertical line. All right, one more quick comment. Add this to your notes. If the line is horizontal, what does it look like? What does the equation look like? Y equals. This is a y equals line. And not y equals mx plus b, it's y equals, in this problem, it would be y equals 4. Y equals a number. And a vertical line looks like x equals a number, right? Okay. All right, I'll see you back at 50 in your go to the bathroom, get all that taken care of. You're back at 50.
Right.